Hi, this is Eric Olson from Helps. I'm going to call this video, It's So Easy to Solve the Problem. Although maybe what seems to me that's easy to solve the problem might be very difficult for someone else, and so that's why I want to do this video. I see that we got an email from someone inquiring about Helps yesterday, and I looked at it and I said, I need to call this gentleman back. I could tell he was really depressed, and he had opened up in an email and shared some difficulties they were going through. He was in his upper 70s and his wife was in her lower 70s. He had Social Security. They both had Social Security, and he had a pension, more than a small amount of pension, so they had adequate income. But they had run into some financial difficulties. They had a fair amount of credit card debt, and they were buying two homes. Actually, both house payments were rather small, although one house payment was more than the rent they were receiving for the house. So we talked about it, and there wasn't really an equity in that rental house at all. They had a couple car payments, and a loan payment with a loan company. And they had struggles, medical struggles, taking care of their parents, and some financial losses a few years back. Didn't know what to do, and was very depressed. So as I talked to him, I realized how typical this was of many of our clients with the financial issues he was going through, and how easy it is to help people solve these financial issues that can really change their life. If we have financial struggles, it can really wear on us and bring us down. And so I was able to talk to him, and I think we were able to change everything, his whole outlook. And so let's give you an example. When I talked to him, first thing I explained to him, I said, well, you realize that your Social Security and your pension is protected. No one can take that money from you. Congress protected these monies so that seniors would have them to take care of their needs, and made it so that debt collectors couldn't take that money from them. I think he'd realized that, but hearing it from me kind of helped. And he felt guilty about the debt, and I'll talk about that in a second. But then I talked to him about the house he lived in. Didn't have a lot of equity, but the payment was very affordable. Then they had this rental house, and I said, gee, you get this much for rent, it costs this much to make the payment. And we looked up the value on the internet, it's easy to do that. I said, would you agree with me there's no equity? And he said, yeah, there's no equity. I said, well, just let the house go back. And in the interim, you can collect the rents, and use them to help you. I said, banks that have mortgages, or mortgage lenders, want homes to be occupied if they're going through foreclosure. If they're vacant, they can be vandalized, there can be problems with them. I've talked to many mortgage lenders, they would rather have someone living in a home than someone not living in the home. I told him it might take a year or longer for that home to go back, but you didn't need to worry about it. There wouldn't be any deficiency, and even if there was, he wouldn't have to pay it, so he didn't need to make that house payment anymore. Well, that immediately freed up $900 in his budget, which is a lot of money. Then I talked to him about the two cars. They're older, in their 70s. I said, well, you can keep both cars if you want, but you don't have to. You could, if you wanted to, let one of the cars go back, and just keep the one car. And if they sell it for less than what's owed, you won't have to pay that debt, okay? And during this, I explained to him what HELPS does. That what we do is represent seniors and disabled persons who owe debt they can't afford to pay under the federal law called the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. If a person has an attorney, a debt collectors cannot send letters to that person or call him on the phone anymore. And so he knew that what we do is would protect him from collectors harassing him if he stopped paying this debt. And he was absolutely current on everything. And so I told him, I said, you can stop making these payments as of today. You don't have to pay this. And had some medical issues going on, and he needed a little money. And I said, well, by not paying this debt and all this other money you're going to save, you're going to be able to afford to pay for that, what you need, that item, that need he had medically. He said, yes, that's right, Eric. And then I could tell he was felt a little bad about those creditors, and he explained he'd never been behind on anything in his whole life. And I talked to a lot of people like that. They've never been behind, and this is a new experience for them. And I explained, well, banks charge an interest rate on the credit cards. It's higher than normal, and the reason is they know a certain percentage of people are going to default and they're not going to be able to collect. And so they factor in that default in their interest rate, and they're still making big profits. And I said, we have a kind of a preloaded email that I'm going to send you. It's called Guilt and Debt, and it explains in detail why you shouldn't feel guilty about this. He didn't choose to have this happen. He didn't intentionally run up this debt. There were circumstances in his life that occurred that caused this debt to run up. And I won't go into details on that because there's so many different reasons for people to run up debt. Maybe a spouse gets sick, maybe kids have problems, maybe someone loses a job, maybe someone makes a mistake. There's all kinds of different reasons. I've been doing this for 4 decades now, and people do not intentionally get into debt so that with the intention that they can get out of it. It just happens that they get into debt and then they find themselves stuck and they don't know what to do. So, he had asked in the email about, bankruptcy. And, I explained, well, it could theoretically file bankruptcy, but you have no need to file bankruptcy because everything you have is protected. Your assets are protected, your income is protected, and HELPS can protect you from collectors bothering you. And you'll always have an attorney so you can always call if you have any questions or concerns or if you're worried or scared. A lot of seniors really don't want to file bankruptcy for a lot of different reasons. There's a cost involved, maybe some embarrassment having to go to court and that kind of thing. And they don't need to file bankruptcy. They can, but they don't need to. So, and I say that because I filed tens of thousands of bankruptcies before I started HELPS. And so when we were done, he felt, he felt a whole lot of relief realizing that he's going to be okay, that his income was protected, that he didn't have to deal with these collectors harassing him. I told him how to stop making the payment to the credit card companies. A couple of them were automatic pays. I told him all you have to do is just either call them on the phone or get on the website and cancel the automatic payment. People do it all the time. There's nothing wrong with canceling an automatic payment. He decided to try to keep the 2 cars. They said, if you change your mind later and want to let one of them go back, let us know. You can stop making the payment and let it go back. And then I asked him about his home. He didn't have a lot of equity, but they were both, even though they had some medical issues, they're both fairly good health. I said, who gets the home when you pass away? Well, we have a son, but I told my son that when I die is to, let it get foreclosed on. There probably wouldn't be enough equity in it. And I said, well, that's fine, but you realize that you could add your son's name onto the title of the home with you as a joint owner with survivorship rights. And what that means is if you pass away and your wife lives another 10 years and the house goes up in value, when she passes away, if his name's on the home with you guys, he'll get the home without there being any probate, and he'll be able to get that equity out of that home for your family. And he says, oh, really? And I said, yeah. And he thought that was a great idea. And so I sent him an email on how to do that. And then when we were done, I think he felt a whole lot better. He said, I paid a lot of interest in my lifetime towards these credit cards, and I understand I just can't pay it. And I said, that's right. And I want you to read this email, and you don't need to feel guilty. The last thing I told him, I said, listen, if you're ever, the whole purpose of HELPS is if you're ever have a question, if you're ever worried or scared, you can always call us on the phone. We'll answer your questions. I explained to him that he possibly could get sued, but I said he didn't need to worry about that. You won't have to go to court. I explained how his income was protected even in the bank account. In fact, I sent him an email on what happens if a HELPS client is sued, because he wanted me to do that. Although I told him, I said, listen, if we have 10 credit cards, maybe 1.5 out of 10 would sue someone. But it doesn't matter. They could all sue you. They couldn't collect from you. And you won't have to go to court. You don't need to worry. So that's the message. It is easy to solve the problem. You just need to have someone to help you. And that's what HELPS does. We represent seniors and disabled persons so debt collectors can't bother them, and we answer their questions. We try to educate them how to maintain their financial independence, like tell them, hey, you can let that other house go back. You don't have to make that payment. There's no equity. There's nothing to sell there. Or if you choose, you can let one of the cars go back. Questions and answers like this is what HELPS provides. Legal information to help seniors and disabled persons that have debt they can't afford to pay. So that's the video. We always ask people that know about HELPS to share what we do with other persons that might need this help. We represent lower income and poor seniors that owe debt they can't afford to pay in order to stop collector harassment, and then educate them how they can maintain their financial independence. And as far as I know, we're the only law firm in the nation that does what we do, and we want people to share what we do with others so more people can find out about us. I know he was very thankful to find us. He found us on YouTube. He had no idea that an organization like HELPS existed. And so we ask anyone that knows about us, if they happen to meet someone or know someone that might need this kind of help, to have them call us. We don't turn anyone away. 3 out of 4 of our clients pay a very nominal sum that goes down, and at least 1 out of 4 of our clients get our help for free. But no one is ever turned away from HELPS because of inability to pay. And the amount people pay is so nominal, so little. No one complains, and if there's a problem, we'll take care of it. We don't want you to worry. So that's my message, and you have a great day.